I used to come onto your show, What's Next?
That's right.
How fitting that you are now the first person that I'm going to interview for my new podcast.
I'm more than honored, to say the least. Honestly, that hit me when you just asked me to be interviewed in the first place. I'm used to being on the other side of that, but then you said I'd be the first. I was, oh shucks, out loud.
I haven't heard all shucks all week, so that's a welcome sound to my ears.
Okay, well, thank you for giving me a reason to make such old-timey, ridiculous noises.
Absolutely. You said peepaw earlier in the coffee shop, and I got very excited.
See, this is the reason we have like a lot of overlap in the content and the mostly audience. Like I feel like our content is very different that we make, but somehow very much that Appalachian audience needing to hear peepaw from somebody else's lips. It makes you feel good.
It does make you feel good. Speaking of audience, if you are not following Matt Deal, you should take a moment and go do so right now. He's hilarious. He's multi-talented, multifaceted. He's a musician. He is very community-minded and just all-around nice guy. Matt recently moved from the coalfields of southern West Virginia to right here in beautiful Savannah, Georgia.
I mean, it was a leap in a way that I've never done before. Like I've moved before, but just truly uprooted and just went with very little plan. It was very nerve-wracking, especially to other people around me, because I think I've just learned to live with my crazy at this point in time. My poor mother is just like, so where are you going to live? Where are you going to work? I'm like, Savannah, and I'll work at a place. And she was like, that's not, no. But still somehow it landed, and there's enough opportunity and around here to really just hit the ground running. If you have that kind of crazy, you can really make it work anywhere.
What have you found that you love the most about Savannah?
I think it's just the absolute variety of like Andy. Like, do you not just want perhaps Mexican food? Maybe you want El Salvadorian. You want to go try the Venezuelan place? You can actually just go to the little, right across from the one place I've been working. There's a great little, and it's a chain, Cuevas grocery stores. So I can go in there and try out my Spanish and then realize that Duolingo has not been teaching me enough numbers, that all I have is like the words. So then they like tell me the price and I'm like,
so there's so much diversity here in literally everything. Anything that you would want is here.
Yeah, really, and that was part of what sold me in the first place. Came down here on a vacation to Tybee Island, and while we were here, my daughter toured the school she ended up going to, and I just getting a taste of the area and realizing this is all the city I want, but not so big that it's miserable to travel through, or it's difficult. I mean, it gets jammed up sometimes, but compared to the size and the flow of some cities. And it also has a very specific historical bent to it. And they let trees exist. Most cities don't let the trees exist. Savannah is filled with all these beautiful weeping willows draped in Spanish moss. And they were smart enough to realize that that's a huge part of the tourist draw. It's worth some of the difficulties that come with it.
It's definitely my favorite part of Savannah.
Yeah.
And coastal Georgia as a whole are these beautiful trees. I think I actually visited the oldest living live oak tree draped in Spanish moss on Jekyll Island recently. And this thing is massive. I think it was like 350 years old, they estimated.
And just, I know it feels humbling to be in the presence of something like one of my favorite things. You probably appreciate this from a city planning perspective. Just last night passed by it. There's this road somewhere nearby here where it's a tree probably about double the size of some of these in the background, and they just let it be part of the road. It comes out well into the road, and they just sort of built around it. They're like, no, that tree is too awesome.
Burke's Garden in Tazewell County, Virginia, which is the region that we're both originally from.
The thumbprint of God.
It is the God's thumbprint.
Yeah, that's right.
Also home to the oldest living willow tree in the state of Virginia. Did you know that?
I did not, but I'm not surprised. That's a place that if ever there's somewhere that I believe might be magical, haunted, or both, yeah, Burke's Garden is it. I would believe it.
I would agree with that, and I've heard that from other people as well. Speaking of haunted, have you experienced any of those famous Savannah ghosts since you've been
I
here?
have not myself, but we're talking about the trees and the Spanish moss. My daughter nerds out for history and knowledge, perhaps even harder than me, and she told me that there's an old saying with the Spanish moss that Spanish moss only grows where blood has been spilled. And Savannah, with its lovely but also bloody history, has layers upon layers of that, whether it's Revolutionary War, Civil War, slave trade before that. There's just as much darkness and brooding history as there is whimsy and variety and multiculturalism. So I kind of like that too, as a person that loves the morbid and loves, history. It's rough on the soul sometimes, being an ethical person, but still fascinating to find out what happened in the grounds you live on.
Sure, I'd never heard that.
Oh yeah,
That's very interesting. I've done a ghost tour or two here in Savannah.
I have yet to partake in either of those myself, but I was surprised in just some of the first bit of walking around seeing one battleground somewhere, and I don't know, I first took it as a Civil War sort of thing, and then I realized I was like, oh no, it's a Revolutionary War.
You know, there's another local tie-in here. You have a square here that is dedicated to Count Casimir Pulaski.
No, what? I did not know this.
There's a monument, and I visited it recently. It's one of the beautiful squares that you have here downtown.
That's incredible. El mundo es un pañuelo, which means the world is a napkin, quite literally, but it's like the Spanish version of it's a small world.
I love that.
And so me and my daughter always look at each other and say, the world is a napkin. Because of course, why wouldn't there be a Pulaski statue here?
So there's a town and a county in Southwest Virginia named after Count Pulaski called Pulaski. There's also Fort Pulaski, which is on Tybee Island. He has a fascinating history, but he was exiled to America.
Huh.
Yes, and then fought in the Revolutionary War.
Way to turn it around, though. I mean, I might go read up about him, find out, like, well, he's, awful in some way. But either way, like, what? Oh, yeah, sure, I got exiled from my country and got banished. But you know what? I'm going to make something of myself here in this new country. Yeah, new place, new me. We have all done it.
He died fighting here in Savannah.
How do you like them apples? Okay.
What do you miss the most, or what was the thing that you loved the most about living in southern West Virginia?
I think it's, something you'll probably relate to a lot, because I feel like it's the greatest thing is also somehow the most annoying thing, the most difficult thing, which is being in this magical, very specific place in the universe and wanting other people to understand how great and how magical that is. But people tend to get it wrong one way or another. And even if you acknowledge all the different flaws, the warts, the issues, it's just like you're getting it wrong. It's just I wish I could show you that particular weird magical town, Welch, that I grew up in, that was all built in old Italian stone and just built into the mountainside in just spite of physics and God's will. They're just like, nah, you can build things on the slope like that. And I mean, just like the rolling hills, like Southwest Virginia down there, where it's just the most beautiful green farmland that you've ever seen in your life. And to try to explain to somebody when they're like, oh, from out there in the boonies, just like, yeah, the boonies have a kind of magic that I've yet to see anywhere else in the world, no matter how much I travel. So
absolutely. And you and I understand why folks remain there. They love it. They love the culture, and the culture is very different. And I think we've seen an influx of people moving to Appalachia recently for the scenic beauty, the relatively low cost of living, right? And it is very safe in most places.
Yeah,
in
well,
parts
less
of Appalachia.
less people, less danger.
Right, and I love that you start your TikToks or your content, and you sometimes finish them the same way by saying, I'm Matt, I talk about Appalachian news, West Virginia issues, things like that, and if you like, share, and follow, it might help my daughter get into the art school for her dreams. And then it did help his daughter get into the art school for her dreams, and now you're supporting her continuing that education. She's just finished her first year, I believe.
She just has, and also all full credit to her, like that, she is doing so much just herself, honestly, most of my support's in the way of like, getting to be here around her, but like the way that I've seen her take the possibilities in this modern day life and run with it have been beyond my wildest dreams.
Sure.
It's pretty great.
I don't know if you walk in here or not, but there's a banjo picker in the background.
And that's a common occurrence. Like you can just mosey on out and like there's a few different really great parks in the downtown areas that really seem to always have that same sort of thing going on. You'll find just people lounging out on blankets, playing banjo, walking their dogs, got their kids around. It's about as wholesome as you could want.
It's a very inspiring environment to be in.
Well, especially from a city planning, someone that's seen and tried to talk other people into such things. And they're like, well, what do you need all this grass for, all this stuff? And it's like, well, look at what it's doing. And then also look at all the money these businesses right around it. I promise that coffee shop we just came out of cannot stop making money. Nice.
Good catch.
I'm glad I got it.
I have this sort of idea that if we could change the environment that we are exposed to every day, that it would impact you positively and what you're looking at. So every day now you're waking up and you're looking at these beautiful trees and you have this atmosphere and you have a lot of healthy activities going on around you. And I would imagine that that is a very positive thing and that does something for your mindset. I feel that sometimes in rural areas and especially in the coal fields, we often have a lot of blight to deal with. It's a very beautiful area and you just can't beat the people. You'll never find better people than where we come from in southern West Virginia and southwest Virginia. But a simple fact is that there is a lot of blight due to the decline of coal. And it's been hard to fight that. And I do feel like if we could battle that and we could give people some more positive things and things to look at and just the environment that they're in, that might change their mindset a little bit.
They're in all that beauty and they never really get to hang out in it and see it. It's go get up, grind, and down in the mines or down at the Dollar General or down at the wherever you're working, and then go home and don't get to experience so much of the whimsy and the joy. And Savannah does a really good job, I think, of the sort of third space mentality. People need a place that's not their job and not their home to just go and do places and just exist. And if you do that, usually a lot of business will pop up around it. Give the people a place to hang out, and they're going to want food, they're going to want drinks, they're going to want experiences, and a lot of them might just have some money on hand that they were looking to spend. So
absolutely,
yeah,
the green space is very important.
Yeah, and they nailed that down here. Like they really, and there's no shortage of stuff going on, but they just really managed to just build around it in a lot of places. Just give these people a place to hang out and do wholesome stuff.
And they prioritize the green space instead of overdeveloping it, which I'm sure they could. Yeah. There's the demand to develop these spaces, but the city seems to have prioritized maintaining the integrity of those spaces.
Well, and you mentioning parking, like on the way in, which obviously is what everybody's worried about as an adult when you're going someplace. But it's wild because while that might not have been the priority, it's like back home, there's a lot of places where they're so worried about parking for the people that haven't got there yet. And meanwhile, here they've got plenty of people. And yeah, you're a little annoyed sometimes. You have to drive around the block 3 or 4 times to find a parking space, but you're going to find it, aren't you? And you're going to go do the thing because it's fantastic. So like every now and then, maybe you do pick the green space over the parking space.
That is a complex issue. As a business owner in a downtown area, I will tell you that it is frustrating when there is limited parking and those parking resources are dedicated to professional services that people have an appointment for. Okay, so businesses that are not depending on foot traffic, they're not depending on the availability of parking. If you have an appointment with an attorney, you're going to find a place to park, right? If you see a coffee shop and you're like, oh, that's cute, I'd like to have an espresso shot or whatever, a pick-me-up. If there's no parking, you're not going to stop.
Yeah, no, that's
right?
Oh man, I didn't even think about that because that is that Tazewell downtown, such a specific law-tastic. Like,
is.
But hey, you have this courthouse sometimes. Like
that's right.
That's one of their business drivers.
And I think that maybe a little bit of a solution to that is just for folks to be a little bit more mindful of where they park, and if they're going to block access to a small business while they're doing their business, while they're going to the courthouse for whatever.
Yes.
Maybe just be a little bit mindful of where you park. And that's not just a Tazewell specific problem. I find that happening all over the place in towns that I'm working with. But that said, to your point, people often will find parking they have no problem when there's an event or something cool happening, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly parking is not an issue when there's an event happening downtown.
Yeah.
So offering people something worth finding parking for is what businesses should be focused on.
Oh, not a bad idea. Again, get the thing first and they'll figure out the parking later. Sorry. But like you said, park more politely. Yeah, it's like I always try to remind myself when I get annoyed. What does they say? Don't attribute things to malice that could just be ignorance. It's like
I love that.
Yeah. And then I'm always annoyed. It's like, but I wanted to be righteously angry. It feels good. I want to shake my fist at the sky like the angry old man I am.
Righteous indignation.
Right. Ooh, I love some righteous indignation. Ooh,
it feels so good sometimes.
It gets that dopamine going.
It does.
It does. That's the trick about it. I remember learning somewhere at some point that people can get addicted to anger just as much as they can get to, firing off the pleasure center so much. So if you've been raging on a regular basis,
that's valid.
Yeah, you might actually be wiring that in and be slightly addicted to it.
Are you seeing sort of the same dynamics here? Maybe not so much politically because you're not necessarily involved in that world, but I feel like one of the things that holds us back in rural Southwest Virginia and Southern West Virginia is, for a lack of a better term, the good old boys club.
Oh yes.
And if you are not a member of the club, you are not protected. You are not afforded opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a master's degree and 10 years of relevant and very stellar experience. And if a former congressman's nephew's wife with no experience, no degree wants the job, you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder if that is the case here. In other areas that I go and work and visit, sure, there's a little bit of politics at play, but it doesn't seem to be to the extent that it is where we come from. Are
Yeah.
you seeing that here?
I think I'm seeing, like, this is a great example, it looks to be, of a place from what I've observed that is breaking from that in a degree, but also still does have plenty of it. A good example here is that there are certain institutions in the town that everybody just sort of says, oh, well, obviously they get to do what they want. And
Sure.
so it does feel like a taste of back home in a much bigger place, because the money talks sometimes louder than the votes or the people do. But at the same time, there was like the PSC, the State Public Service Commission. I think that's what's still called down here too. But they had a kind of an upset back in some of those sleepier elections. Usually people manage to miss because enough folks heard it, some of the different rallies, Snow Kings and stuff that happened here. They were also focusing on a lot of local stuff. And they're like, hey, you want your power rates to go down, you need to look at these people that, have been kind of that good old boy
Right.
system. And, a lot of that stuff usually happens in very boring conversations and back rooms and stuff that's, disguised as, so you trust me, you don't want to be a part of this. Oh, it's so boring. And it is boring, but also those are the people that decide that, well, your power rates are just going to keep going up and up. The internet has really given us a great opportunity a lot of times for people to bring light and transparency to things the boring things happening in back rooms,
Right.
affecting their pocketbooks they wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Right. And with social media, creators are raising awareness for these things
Yeah.
and explaining those things in a way that everyone, an average person, can understand, because these are complex issues.
Yeah.
And we get so consumed with our day-to-day lives and gas prices and, I've got to get to soccer practice and the kids got t-ball practice at the same time. How am I going to do this? That we often forget to pay attention to those things. And so it just goes right under the radar. Getting involved often looks like attending your local town council meetings or your board of supervisors
Yes.
meetings. But getting involved also means you need to educate yourself on how things work. And this is no offense to anyone who I've ever worked with professionally, but a lot of times people who are in positions of authority in leadership roles in towns or counties don't know who their delegate is. They don't know who their state senator is. They don't know who their United States senator is. They don't know who their congressman is, and they don't know the difference between the four of those people. And that's very important to know. But it's very common to not understand that. A big part of why I wanted to do this was to give a platform to community champions, people who are just absolute gladiators for the places that they live and love every day, and be able to celebrate those folks in a way that they deserve to be celebrated. And a lot of times having an impact on your community doesn't require permission. I love it when people just see a need and they just take it upon themselves to fulfill that need. And Matt, you did that with Can Jam. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was a thing I did for 15 years, and I, to be honest, might have to dip my toe back in at some point because I find myself missing it. But for 15 years, we did this event where it would always be a bunch of my friends, musicians, whoever could get on board, the most talented around. But they would donate their time, and we would take the money we'd get. Usually it started as $5 or 5 canned food items, because I wanted something that even if you were very broke, you also could come to. And it would all go to the Bluefield Union Mission. And it started for a couple different reasons. A, that I saw there's plenty of lovely events around that happen around the holidays, especially for the Union Mission or other people, and they're going to make way more money at those because it's people with big names in nice suits with big checks, and they're frightened to, because it's 501c3, baby. Let me go ahead and get the end of the year. Let me write off some of that stuff on my taxes. And while sure, we're glad they're doing what they're doing, I wanted something just for regular old people that were also broke but would like to give something back. And we got local businesses involved. I would get donated prizes from all these folks, and then even if all you had was that 5 cans of Beanie Weenies to get in the door, you might walk away with a really cool prize at the end of the night. And you saw some live music and you had a good time, and it just continued to grow. It really was this thing that, even though I would run myself ragged getting it ready every year, it made me so happy, and it brought exposure to small businesses. People found out about them they might not otherwise. People just got a chance to be out and do something nice in the community, and it's an excuse to play some music. I love win-win-win scenarios, as I call them. Nobody really loses. The businesses never had to give up too much. The venue gets a bunch of people in for free if they donate the space. So the musicians were only the ones that really taking a hit at the start of it too. Just to give a little extra shout out to the Union Mission, when I delivered pizza many moons ago, I had this experience where it was a snowstorm and this woman was in the Greyhound bus depot that was in Bluefield at the time. They've since torn it down, but it was in the bottom of the Scott Street parking garage. And she was there with 2 young boys, and they were snowed in for the night. And this woman, just like as I was delivering pizza to someone else, like was just basically worrying aloud, like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And it just wrecked my heart. I remember I found there was a pizza that wasn't going to anybody. So I grabbed it, and on one of my next deliveries, stopped by there and took that to them. And she was very thankful, like, for the couple pizzas. But then the next night I was delivering, and that snowstorm was still going on, and they were at a hotel. I had a delivery to a hotel, and it was that same woman and 2 kids, and the Union Mission had put them up in there. And I was just remember thinking then, I was just like, just all the help I could give to an organization that is quietly in the background doing things like that for people that need the help. That's what I would love to do. So this last year was the first time in 15 years not doing it around the holidays, which was nice to focus on getting my life together down here doing that, but kind of miss it. Kind of miss it. I don't know if I'm going to end up maybe doing it again back home this year, or trying to do some event similar down here, or maybe both. Honestly, I always love to say both of them. So I might end up trying to do all the charity events, because there's a lot of need down here. You can see a lot of homelessness here, and it makes sense because it's a warmer place, and they're actually pretty cool about it. It seems you don't see a lot of cops just chasing homeless people away for just being unhoused and being out and about, but it's obviously an issue. So anyway, I can contribute to that as well. There's people that'll want to come out and do fun things, so why not put all those together and turn it into a net benefit, net positive for the community? You only get so much time here, so why not do nice things and have fun doing them if you get the chance?
And you know, when you look at it from the outside looking in, you might think, how on earth would I ever begin to put something like that together? Really, it's not that hard to figure out the logistics. When you get into it, it can become very complicated.
It's really
quickly.
More, all the things are more about the doing. The figuring, you think like you're not smart enough to figure it out. And it's just like, honestly, it's usually surprisingly simple, but it's just, frankly, edit or bleep me here, pain in the ass. It's like, are you willing to go to all those businesses to get that small? It's the same kind of like being a musician. Anybody, they're like, what do I do to, like, or do you love it so much that you'll go to dive bar after dive bar after dive bar, weekend after weekend after weekend, just because you still love playing music? Then if so, you'll be qualified for it. So if you really want to make that charity event happen, you really want to start that foundation, open that business, if you got that crazy in you to do it, just do it, jump.
I love that. I also have that crazy in me.
Right, we see it.
Have just taken the bit by the teeth and done some things like that myself. And I think another thing that holds us back in rural areas is this scarcity mindset. And in Appalachia, we certainly come by that, honestly, right? But it definitely keeps doers from continuing to do the doing, right? So when you put yourself out there to organize an event or open a business, you're going to attract negativity, a lot of negativity, especially in a small town. I don't know why that is, but it certainly is exhausting. And so the people who are out there pushing these initiatives forward will get tired, and eventually they will stop putting those efforts for the community together, and it hurts us, it holds us back.
I think as far as getting the people to keep going with the thing, sometimes it is important. It's just that's where friend support comes in. Other people that do the same kind of things, because you don't want to just sound like, oh, haters gonna hate, because I mean, sure they will, but you want to be a little more eloquent about it. And you notice after a while that there is always a chorus of people who are taking advantage of the fact that it's way easier and much safer, by the way, to stay at home, point a finger, and say that's probably going to fail. Because sometimes you're going to be right, and you literally risk nothing. And meanwhile, it's a lot harder to actually go out and be like, I kind of want to try to do this thing. And maybe it does fail, but like you have to show up and do that thing every day. And also there's going to be a chorus of people who, it does hurt to watch we've all felt that envy. Like you see somebody else doing something different, and you kind of, you wish you could do that. And you're going to have that. So there's don't be one of the talkers, be one of the doers.
The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. I remember when I first started doing it. It's good.
There's a good saying in the South for everything.
We should put that on a shirt.
Yes.
When I first began doing this kind of work, I started by putting some community events together. And the first one was called First Fridays. And I totally
yeah.
ripped that off from Roanoke, Virginia. They have a First
Oh, there's
Fridays
a bunch of
event
places
that's
that do it,
amazing.
but it's a genius
it's not
idea.
original to anyone, but we brought it to Tassel, and we did it that first year. And it was very successful. The community came out and showed up and showed out for it, but online. Each time we would have one of these, someone would be negative about the band in some way. And I would take it so personal too, because I'd poured my heart and soul into putting this event together.
Right.
And someone sent me a book by Brene Brown. I believe it's called Daring Greatly. I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, Brene Brown, she's amazing. She's very inspiring. And in this book, she talks about this Teddy Roosevelt quote. It's called The Man in the Arena. Yes,
I've never heard it, and I love it.
Brene Brown says it perfectly. She sums up his quote by saying, if you are also not in the arena getting your ass kicked, I am not interested in your feedback.
Yes.
And that is so powerful, because if you are not also doing something meaningful and important for your community, I don't care what you have to say about what I'm contributing. All right, what's your favorite restaurant back home?
Ooh. Well,
I have to ask.
And because I'll be going there, like I said, Sterling Drive-In in Welch.
Okay.
Welch, West Virginia, Sterling Drive-In. Actual, still you can drive in and do that number and honk. Most folks don't, but they will come out and do that. But it's also the home to the McDowell County Sports Hall of Fame, which includes my Uncle Frank Marino now, after many years with a lot of controversy around that. We won't get into it. But it's just, my personal pick there is the hoagie. And it's, giant hamburger steak that's like the length of the thing on a deep fried bun. Because you notice that every Appalachian town has a deep fried sub place. Like every place has some place you get a sandwich on deep fried rolls. And Sterling's the one there. And yeah. Cheese, sauteed onions, banana peppers, lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise. Every time. Get it with fries and a shake. You will probably need a nap, but it's the best thing ever. Yeah, every time.
I'm going to have to check that out.
I promise. Yeah.
There's a gas station in Yeager, outside of Yeager. I can't remember the name of it. You're going to know.
Country Court?
No.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know, Easy Stop or something like that. But anyway, they have a full menu. They do soup, beans, and cornbread every single day. And they have the best hot dogs. And I've made a lot of content about their hot dogs because I'm obsessed with them. They come on the split top buns.
The split top buns?
Yes.
I was trying to explain that because I get to take my girlfriend on this little tour. She took me to the Crystal Beer Parlor, by the way, so credit to her. But I get to take her on a little tour with me back through West Virginia. And I love that I get to explain the hot dog thing to her, just why these dairy, because she was just like, well, Dairy Queen, I'm lactose intolerant, I can't really do that. I was like, oh, people like the ice cream, but that's not even the big deal there. People love the hot dogs. She's like, what do you mean? And it's like, oh, no, because they come in the buns, they grill them on the side, you gotta have, it's amazing.
So is that a West Virginia thing?
It feels pretty, I didn't realize it was so specifically West Virginia. Yeah, you grow up, it's kind of like when you travel outside of West Virginia far enough the first time and realize there aren't always pepperoni rolls in the gas station. Yeah. That's such an upsetting moment for a West Virginian, because I just assumed every gas station. No. Once you travel across a certain line, my friend, no longer. It's like, well, what if I get drunk at 2 a.m.? What do I eat then? Usually there's actually a Sheetz or something like that elsewhere, but it doesn't hit quite like a good old pepperoni roll with spicy cheese.
Why is it that after midnight is the best time?
Yeah.
Optimal time to eat a pepperoni roll.
Right out there. Some dietitians out and gastroenterologists out there no, it is not. Don't tell people that. I'm talking about what's not good for the body, what's good for the soul. It's a different thing.
That's right. Are you familiar with Dingus, West Virginia?
I think I might have driven through Dingus, but I've definitely laughed many a time at the fact that Dingus, sorry, no disrespect to the people of Dingus, West Virginia. We all have some ridiculous places, but yes, about Dingus.
So I've recently been introduced to Dingus, West Virginia by way of TikTok. And so the tunnel that's a mile long that takes you into Dingus, I think that's so fascinating.
I think that's why I talked about Dingus before. I think that's the one that has the really, really dark history. It's so incredibly upsetting but fascinating too.
Really?
The things that happened once upon it. There was many a times that tunnel is said to be haunted, if I'm thinking of the right one, and that was because there's a lot of people that went in one side, did not come out the other. Wow. The people in the towns were very selective about who they let in and who they did not sometimes, and sometimes that was around pretty awful reasons, and sometimes it was down to mining disputes or other such. But people went in and they usually had somebody to tell them, so if they didn't want them to come out the other side, they didn't.
Wow, that's very intriguing.
Yeah. This is not just Savannah. It has, we got it back home too. Yeah.
Well, we do. I mean, there's a lot of lighthearted and positive historic stories in our region where we hail from, but there's also a lot of dark history, and a lot of social injustice issues that were very prevalent and still linger certainly today.
But it's weird. I think that oddly enough, like the true crime for all that like fascination and stuff, that sometimes it sort of lends itself to, I think, a little bit more historical curiosity and people like exploring these things and wanting to see these places, but like for the right reasons, you know, like just being deeply fascinated in it, but also having the reverence and respect to it. So it's kind of nice to, you know, somewhere that's probably one of my other favorite things about back home is to somehow like fully appreciate that, to be somewhere
Yes.
and recognize all that insane history around there, but then to look at the, you know, beautiful backdrop at which it happened, you know.
Absolutely. That's really why I struck out on this content creation journey a couple years ago. Was I had a video go viral completely by accident, just showing, I wanted to show my children how poor my family was growing up. And so I was working down in the town where my grandparents owned some property. So I went and I made a TikTok and I
around
showed
around the property.
Yeah.
I love that. Was a
I
great
showed the
one.
outhouse. My grandfather had carpet in the outhouse. I showed the
Yes.
well where you would I was fascinated with the well and drawing the water up when I was little. And I put it out there and I didn't intend for it to go anywhere. I just wanted to show my kids TikTok's editing software is very user-friendly. And so
It's
that's
so
why I chose that
user-friendly, right?
platform, right?
Yeah.
And it exploded overnight and I woke up and it had like almost 1 million views overnight. And I had like 10,000 followers overnight. And I had like 12 when I went to bed. So, okay, how do I keep this going, right? And so I just started showing the work that I do and our region in a positive light, because there's so much negativity about the coal fields and there's so much content out there about the blight that you see. And there are so many creators out here engaging in what we call poverty porn.
Yeah.
And so they drive through these coal camp communities and they, look at how the hillbillies live, right? And it's so disparaging and it's so discouraging and disheartening for the people who are living there and fighting every day to make things better. So that's really why I started doing the content that I do. And I hear from people often that, hey, I didn't even know that the place where you live was so cool, or that this is actually a place that I do want to visit, because I've only seen negativity in the media surrounding Appalachia.
See, I like that you point that out, because it's, you know, again, as you say, real easy for poverty porn folks to just like drive through and point at a different thing. But there's like this thing they sort of teach you in radio that I learned through the years, where, you know, you expound on something and you just say whatever town, whatever incident, whatever historical thing, and you don't just assume ever that the listener knows that, because we all know a different set of facts. And it's a really wonderful and surprising experience to find that you have a whole lot to teach other people, where you're just like, hey, here's something that I've always just thought is kind of interesting, but I never said much out loud because A, there weren't 70,000 people following or whatever,
Right.
and B, because I didn't know if anybody else thought it was as interesting. And sure enough, all these things that you've taken for granted, these little facts about where you live, how things work, you know, random facts about country songs and stuff, like the songwriter who has the made up town, that wrote Goodbye Earl and all those. I think I touched
and
on
Earl
it too.
integrated in multiple songs.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of
Yeah.
thing you find out, and then you have to like Linville. I can't remember what his last. Either way, but that guy, those are the little facts that you find out along the way, and you're just like, oh, I guess maybe everybody knows that. No,
Right.
they don't. Share it, and you'd be surprised
Right.
the community you'll find in this. Rather than one of my biggest beefs ever is I want us to move from a if you know society, from a hey, I just thought you'd like to know, just in case you wanted to know.
That's valid.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm formulating how to approach a series of content ideas that are centered around coal and things that you and I take for granted that we've looked at our whole lives. I did one on kettle bottoms already, because we see a kettle bottom, we know what that is, but the rest of the world doesn't know what a kettle bottom is. But a coal seam. You see a coal seam when you're going down the highway. I don't know how many times I've had people visiting the coal fields who I'll point out, oh, that's a coal seam, that black line that you see in the rocks there along the highway. What? Are you kidding me? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Those are things that we all take for granted that are surrounding us every day, but I think the rest of the world would be fascinated to know that.
Well, one of the more recent videos I had that just took off and still seems to keep going was just talking about how I think about the regrowth of the trees in West Virginia. They're all so giant, and there's so many different ancient ones, then finding out that actually that's like the second or third round They came in initially, and just like they did in so many states, but they were like, there's good timber,
Right.
and chopped it down. There was like huge, unbelievably gigantic, redwood-sized trees and stuff back in the day. And then because of that, all the people in my comments are like, I came here to talk about the American chestnut and the blight of that, and then that started off a whole other conversation, and we're all just learning these random things together. Apparently,
that.
people had things to say about trees and coal and industry in West Virginia. And
Sure.
I love having that conversation with people because I didn't realize there was that many hundreds of thousands of people ready to nerd out about the same thing with me. That's awesome.
The algorithm is so intelligent, and I know that it's AI, driven, and there's a lot that goes into that. But it is surprising to me every single time. The people who are experts on a subject will find your content. The people who will appreciate it will find your content. Another interesting thing that I've noticed lately, I've only recently begun to post my TikToks over to Facebook. And I hadn't done that in the past because Facebook is where, people know me in real life. And, they're not always as supportive as these strangers, this community that I've built over on TikTok.
Very different algorithms, yeah. But
very different.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I've been very fortunate on TikTok as, I've had the occasional troll, but really I haven't had any haters. I mean, a few here and there, but it hasn't been bad.
The ratios are just like better, but it seems like whenever I've like taken any of that same thing over to Facebook or Instagram Reels, which I think we're all kind of doing more just because you diversify your platforms.
Sure.
Like you never know which one's going to collapse overnight or go what direction. But yeah, those can be a lot meaner comment sections.
The comments are so different.
Yeah, and either way though, like you said, just power through them. Like kind of where we started off earlier. You just after a certain point. It's like there's a little glee in there now. Like obviously nobody wants to see people just being completely ugly, but sometimes you just see that and you're a little bit just like, well, you sure are mad, aren't you? I must be doing something right because it just set you off for me to just say the truth or just get up and live my life the way I wanted it to. That really just upset you. You had to go into the comments and get those little thumbs going, huh?
It's that righteous indignation.
Yeah, exactly. It feels good.
Somehow.
People love that.
And the content that I put out there a lot of the time is about various small towns. I've never seen more people hate on their own towns than on Facebook. Now,
there's some people that love to hate on their own town.
Man, it's like, people, the world is reading your comments.
Yeah.
And what we have going for us in our part of the world where we come from is tourism. Okay, there's really not a lot going on in the way of economic development. No offense to those people who are trying diligently to make it happen. Right. Tourism is what we have. And people are actively coming to have these experiences, whether it be the ATV trails or just any sort of recreational activity. These are natural assets that are inherent to Central Appalachia, and we've capitalized on those. When they see the residents being negative about their own community, do you think that inspires those folks to come there and spend their money? Because when they come, I rode the ATV trails recently for the first time, did the Hatfield-McCoy trails, and there were 4 people from New York at the hot dog stand. Really cool place.
Pierce's place?
I don't know.
The hot dog stand in the middle of the woods?
Actual outhouse. Yes, that's it.
Yep. I played a gig there.
I love that. So it's literally a bunch of lean-tos put together, fire pit, an outhouse, just a really cool place. And they have a stage and they do live music and things. And I met 4 people from New York City who had come to West Virginia. They were staying in Princeton, and they had brought their ATVs. And so I always make it my business. I want to collect the data. So talking to them and explaining what I do, and they're asking what there is to do around here and why do you continue to live here? We love to visit it, but we wouldn't want to live here because there doesn't seem to be a lot going on. And so I asked them, how much do you think you've spent this weekend? Each couple estimated that they had spent $3,000 individually. So that's $6,000 for 4 people injected into the local economy by way of lodging, the lodging taxes, the meals taxes. They bought gas. They probably bought some merchandise somewhere.
I started thinking about this so much because, for one, anytime you see a rig going down the road, and I remember on Bluefield Avenue, you'd see them all the time heading down into the county or off into Bramwell, Brush Fork, whatever. And, that truck cost $30,000 to $50,000.
Yeah.
The trailer probably cost maybe up to $5,000. Every toy you see on that thing was nicer than the car I was driving up till a couple of days ago. And so I was like, that's 10, that's another 5,
right.
That's another they're these guys just casually rolling into town with $100,000 worth of toys to hang out. They brought money and they are not stressed about it. I met so many of them playing down in like Wagon Wheel Road, way out there in where Mercer County meets Wyoming County, and I would go down and play. Sometimes at these even private events down at the campground down there. And yeah, every time I went down that road, they were doing road work in Crumpler. When was the last time you think they were doing road work in Crumpler, West Virginia? Those roads are nice, and every time you'd pass down the same little row of houses in Crumpler, another one would be fixed up, another guy would be having an ATV wash out here, this one's now an Airbnb, and you got to worry about that, pricing folks out thing, but it looked like a lot of people there were making a bunch of money off of everybody
Right.
coming through with the ATVs, and there's a lot of quiet development happening in the back roads there in West Virginia that people don't see yet.
Sure.
And when King Coal Highway actually does get connected and go through, and same thing with the Coalfields Expressway,
Yes.
they're all going to connect there at the same sort of places. A lot of land that wasn't worth that much a few days ago is suddenly going to be worth a whole lot more. So.
Right. It has these various initiatives like the Back of the Dragon in Tazewell, which is 32 miles, 438 curves, brings in hundreds of thousands of people every year to traverse that road, which made us all car sick growing up, but people love it. It has inspired entrepreneurship on a local level. It has been impactful. Now, my big thing is the community impact. I do feel strongly that the community, their needs need to be met and their input needs to be taken into serious
Yes.
consideration. Okay, I'm not saying that these initiatives are the be-all, end-all answer to the economic downturn that we've experienced due to the decline of coal in our region, but it's something, right? However, when you don't inform the community and you're not transparent about these things, when you just shove something onto a community, my town didn't sign up to become Little Sturgis, right? Like we did it, but here we are, and we have to embrace it. I'm a business owner. I get it. Like, I know the impact that it's had on my business, multiple businesses, my Airbnbs and my coffee shop, my daughter's coffee shop now. That is her problem. No. But on the flip side of that, I'm also a resident. And I'm not a motorcycle person.
Yeah.
And the reason that a lot of people live in Tazewell County, Virginia, is because of the scenic beauty. It's so peaceful and quiet. And then there's this constant barrage of motorcycles
Yeah, they
coming
didn't
down
want
the
to
street.
hear.
Right? Yeah.
They didn't want that at all.
And I don't know what the answer to that is, because we need it. We depend on it at this point, because I personally don't want to go back to the days when we didn't have restaurants, when we didn't have a coffee shop, we didn't have businesses. And because of this motorcycle destination that we've become, we suddenly have that.
That's a great, like you said, the getting out in front of it as the community. Because one, if it's all just done in the back rooms ahead of time, it's going to get like those nice people from New York. But then also we're like, what's the deal with the area? Those people also a lot of times come down and snag up a piece of property, and
Yes.
then they get to do it. And then next thing you know, a great thing's happening. Nobody locally has a hand in it. So you want to give the local folks plenty of time and heads up so that they can get some investment in it and they can have some say in it. But like, I think about those different communities, like Bluefield fighting with how much do we want to allow ATVs
Yes.
in town, and they're going to have a different answer than like or Blue Well, where they're like, well, we're only half incorporated, we're cool with it, actually. It doesn't really disrupt, and we're happy to have the traffic. And each town's going to have a different set of needs, and if you just let the money talk first, and it speaks over the community, then that's where you have a problem. A good thing
like
turns
that.
into a bad thing.
I like the way you phrase that.
Yeah.
When you're transparent and you invite the community to come in and be a part of a process, suddenly you're creating community champions. You're creating champions for a project or an initiative. And if you are completely blindsiding a community with something that you're forcing upon them without their input or the impact considered, you've only created critics.
Yeah. And in that case, even if you do have a good thing, you might end up making enemies just because nobody likes to do something without a say.
That's right.
And be forced into it. So, but lo and behold, as the money is there and it's coming. So people, whether your town's telling you or not, be looking out, be watching around Appalachia, because if it's a good place for ATV, you got some property, you hold on to it, and you tell others to do the same, because it's going to escalate, I think,
I
only
agree.
more. But I think there's a lot of good to be had from that. I think there's, as long as the locals get to have a say in it, they can also start to have more and more of the things that they've wanted and deserved for a long time. Where the city and the state government keep saying, oh, we can't manage to fix your water. Like I said, now they're doing road work out in Crumpler. I bet if they get enough traffic in there, suddenly they will find magically the money so you can have clean water coming out of your pipes. Crazy how that works sometimes.
The chicken or egg
Yeah.
concept. Yeah.
Oof. I don't know which one we got to get first, but either way, as long as it gets clean water somewhere along the way, then everybody will be happy. That's the thing. I guess that's the difference. When you get money in and it just keeps giving people dirty water or something, then they're like, well, where was my side of it? But if good things come in and they see their conditions improve, well, I bet you're going to have some people on your side with it. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. I think I have a pretty good idea. I can turn the tables on you a little bit because I got my questions, as well. So but just you see how you like that. We'll see. But I did want to turn the tables on you just a little bit because I wanted to ask you about. You go a lot of different places and you deal with a lot of different kinds of communities, but generally there's always going to be, I somehow still feel like most people are good. And there's going to be a lot of people in most places that want the good things to happen. What are some of the connecting things that you see despite all the differences in communities from Appalachia to down here in Georgia where you're working?
What I see in every single town that I work with is a collective of entrepreneurs pushing for change and growth. And I attribute that to the fact that most of the time a municipality is so focused on water sewer issues or potholes or things that are very obviously wrong and need to be attended to immediately, as they should be. And a lot of times in rural areas, they do not have the capacity to focus on community development or to focus on doing community events or any sort of thing that's going to make your town a destination. It's just not a priority in a lot of places. And so as a business owner, you don't have time to wait on local government to decide to take a stand and make something happen, right? And so a lot of times it's the business owners, the business community getting together, organizing and pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. Doesn't matter where they're at, whether it's in West Virginia or Texas or Wyoming or here in Georgia. It's a collective, I'll have to cut that. It's a collective of entrepreneurs who are pushing for change. And that's when you see real change happen. It's more lasting when it is community driven and when it is driven by a group of business owners.
When they did it and they weren't forced into it. But again, back to what you said, not asking for permission for something. And people will look at their local government and say, oh, well, why don't they do this? Why don't they make more happen? It's a fair point. It's hard to have a 5-year plan when you're putting out fires because, I've seen really good, I interviewed so many people that were truly going in every day with the best intention of the town, of the community at heart, and had this great idea for something, an initiative they wanted to do in the future, but also there's a fire that day. There's a sinkhole now. There's this, this 150-year-old piece of infrastructure. What do you know? It failed and collapsed, so we got to fix that. And I feel for those people. I felt a lot of sympathy for them. It was like watching behind the scenes of Parks and Recs a lot of time. They're just trying, man. And people are still so
accurate.
It's painfully accurate. And people are still so mean about it while they're trying to, do it. So who has, like you said, the a little bit more freedom? They're not bound so much by the rules of government. Hence, you get those partners, public-private partnerships a lot of times. Because eventually, even when they think they're crazy at first, I think of places like Princeton, Tazewell is also another great example where once upon a time people were like, what are we going to do things for? What are you worried about a fun thing for? We got to fix pothole. And eventually it points out, fun things bring the money to fix the pothole.
That's right. That's right. And local government should be a partner in that. And most of the time they get on board with it eventually because it becomes unpopular for them not to not support it. And a lot of times they will support it financially, which they should when they can.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's just proof of concept, organizing a group to pull off an event and showing local government, hey, this is what we can do. We brought 3,000 people to town for Octo Brewfest.
Yes.
They spent a lot of money on our main street. Did it cost you all a little bit in the way of public works to close the street and the police department and all that? Yeah, but look at the return on the investment that you've made here. The meals tax, the local spending impact that we had for a 4-hour event is huge, and we do that every year in Tazewell. It's been very impactful. So eventually local government usually gets behind, but initially it's almost always a group of small business owners. And that is so important to see other towns organizing in that way. And another reason why I want to do this podcast is to show people who want to enact change, but they don't know where to start. There's a town that I work with in Texas. It's called Burton, and I'm gonna have
Texas. That's a good name.
It's so cool.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It's so tiny, but it's so cool because they have so many cool businesses in this little bitty, I think it's like a 4-mile radius town.
Oh, man.
And so I'm gonna have Tiffany on virtually if I can't make it down her way to interview her. But she started this initiative. They didn't have a name for it yet, but they knew they wanted to do something. They wanted to promote their town. The town obviously didn't have the resources to do it themselves, and so these businesses got together and they brought me in, and we did a round table. We did like a small town summit, and the surrounding towns all came together, and they were inspired to create a nonprofit called Destination Burton. And they've been able to do the coolest things with that nonprofit just in the last 12 months of just getting that up and running. And so I think those types of stories are so inspiring, and there's so many people like that who look around and they want to see something like that happen, but they just don't know where to start.
But it's like, you can just do
that's so
things.
cool.
You could just do things. No one's stopping you.
rules. I mean, there are very few rules.
I mean, laws. That's what they call those.
Laws and rules.
Right, exactly. But as far as the just reaching out to somebody, just trying to make something happen, classic of what's worse they can say no.
Yeah, that's right.
And what if they say yes? Then you get to do something absolutely incredible, and you never thought you could, huh? But look at you go. I'm just a guy with a GED from Welch, West Virginia, and I have got to travel over so much of this country and this world and do so many things that I would have never imagined. Don't let anybody tell you that you just can't because of whatever stupid reason. Yes, you can. Go and do it.
I love that.
Thank you.
Go on and do it.
Go and do it.
I think that's the line that I need to close every single episode. You don't need anyone's permission to have an impact on the place where you live.
It's like you said, go and do it.
Go on and do it.
Go and do it. So you told me that the name of the show is Reground, and I like that, but also your explanation behind it I really, really liked more than I just, because advertising, I'll just hear something that's catchy. I'm like, yeah, that's good. See, and I want to smoke a cigar. I'll put on a funny hat. But then you gave me a really great explanation behind that. So why'd you name the show Reground?
I went through a lot of names before landing on Reground, and a lot of good names that were already taken. Changemakers, for example. I thought that was the coolest name, but that one is taken, and it's actually a very successful podcast, and it's about people who are enacting change, in social change, all over the world, and I think it's amazing. So I had to do a lot of soul searching and research also to find one that was available. So Reground is, what I do is revitalizing. I, go in and show communities their roadmap to get where they want to go, right? And so revitalizing, rebirth, regrowth, renew, rebuild.
Yeah.
And also the way that I spell it, so the RE:ground, that is a nod to, in regard to ground, right? So in regard to the ground where we are, because I also want to touch on the history of the place that I'm talking about. So I thought that it all kind of made sense, and it wasn't taken.
Yeah.
Most importantly, wasn't taken.
I also love the little nod to all the what's the word I'm looking, the bureaucracy that you've dealt with a bajillion emails with the regarding ground. I was like, yeah, that seems about right.
So that's actually what happened. I was riding a bike the other day, and I had this thought of changemakers. And so I go down that road and realize that I can't go there. And then I'm listening to Christopher Cross, the song Sailing.
Excellent.
And the line where he says, all caught up in the reverie. And I thought, reverie, that's it. No one knows what that even means. That's what I'm going to call the podcast. Taken.
God.
So I go back to my hotel room, and I have this email. And it said RE:, and then the town's name that I'm working with. And it was like, there it is.
Yep.
And that's how I came up with it.
I love a little strike of inspiration. That's always that you will try to force the idea, but it's so cool how something hits you up. That's probably the thing that I feel like keeps me going more than anything, whatever thing I'm being like creative about is, there's nothing quite like that rush of just like when you're frustrated with the thing, but when the idea comes to you and you're like, but wait, hold on a second. We might be able to, and making that come into existence is they bottle it and sell it because that's the drug I want.
That's right. Have you watched the Michael Jackson movie?
I have not, no.
You've got to go see it. Okay, listen, I've seen it 4 times.
Okay.
No shame.
Okay.
I watched it back to back one night at the Mercer Mall Cinema. There's a scene, and I'd heard this story before about Michael Jackson, that he would channel ideas, and he would say, I have to channel these ideas or else God's going to give them to Prince. And
That is true, though. He would have.
That's right. And so in the movie, he's floating in the swimming pool, and his brothers are like, "What are you doing, Mike?" And he's like, I'm channeling ideas. I've got to be here. I've got to be present. I've got to be grounded, or God's going to give my ideas to Prince."
The fact that it's Prince specifically is still the funniest thing. I love how much, not just all music that Prince put out and all the stuff that he did, but the amount of inspiration Prince did just by like making people self-conscious and crazy. Like Rick James touring with them and being like, "We got to be better. This guy's too good and I don't like him." Rick James stole Prince's synthesizer, and the doo-doo that's in the Super Freak, and then later used in all the things that sampled Super Freak.
You can't touch this.
That's Prince's synthesizer. Because back in the day, you had to get them, and you had to. There was the early days of it, and you had to really like dial them in the way you wanted it. And he liked the way that Prince's synthesizer sounded on stage. Apparently, they went backstage after one of those last shows. It was gone, and then he like gave it back, like at some point later with like some sort of disrespectful Rick James note on it. But he used that synthesizer to make the Super Freak sample and a bunch of other things on that record too. So so many iconic sounds we found out were from Prince's stolen synthesizer. Right?
Such a story.
Right? That's again the random things you find out and you're like, did you all knew that, right? No, I have some sort of neurodivergence that's strong on music. Got you. I realize that now. Okay.